Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the July 15th meeting of the Merced County Association of Governments. And I would like, if Joy would call the roll.
Director Aguilar. Director Kale.
Here.
Director Espinoza.
Present.
Director Faria.
Here.
Director Hogue.
Here.
Director McDaniel.
Present.
Director Nagy. Director Pedroso.
Here.
Director Serrato. Director Silvera. Director Pereira.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. And I was wondering if Mr. Nagy would be willing to lead us. Is there anybody that would like to do an invocation for us today? Sure. Do I have the ability, John, to turn the microphone on, or does somebody else?
Yep. Testing. Father God, we love you and praise you, and we thank you for this opportunity, and we just ask you to give discernment and abilities and thought to the board as they consider the items before them in the best interest of the public. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you. Are there any corrections to the agenda?
None from staff.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Who was it moved by? Oh, Faria, and seconded by Espinoza. All right. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll call the roll, please. Oh, now that we're in not in Zoom anymore, all right.
Many virtual options.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. I know, huh? Oh. Yes. All right, at this time, we have time for public comment. Public comment is available in advance of or during the meeting. If you'd like to make public comment, please come up to the microphone and we'll take your comments. Okay, seeing none, we will move to item 4. At this time, I would like to ask April to come join me over here. Yeah. Well, as she's standing here, and we can all appreciate her, because the microphone's low, I'm going to stay seated. But
I don't have my high heels on today.
So I will tell you that as I watched April as a board member, she would often get frustrated with the rest of the group, right? Because she's a get it done, let's get right to it, no drama kind of person. And so I was curious, right, to see how she would handle us as chair. And I'll tell you, she did a phenomenal job. I was so proud and impressed, and I honestly, and even, it was on Zooms, and, it just wasn't easy. And I felt that you stepped into the position, and you did a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I guess I should have looked at the agenda. Thank you. I appreciate this recognition, and it has been a challenge over the year, and so it's been really fun to learn a lot more about parliamentary procedures. So thank you all, and I appreciate this. Thank you, Lloyd.
You're quite welcome. And as my colleagues will attest, I never say anything that I don't truly believe. Well, unless I have family in the room sometimes. All right, well, thank you again. Now we'll move on to item 5, which is recognition of service for Joseph DiGadillo as chairperson of the CAC from November 20th, or November of 2020 to June of 2021, and that will be Stacy Guzman.
And I'll come down there to get a picture with you, Jose, but I'll use the microphone to say this. You know, this is something I get to do in my role every time we have a change in CAC chairmanship, and I always appreciate the time and effort that our volunteers put into the CAC. But this was particularly special because you have been very engaged with the agency for a long time. I was really enjoyed the opportunity in your years you've been serving in the CAC to go to Washington with you on One Voice, all of the activity that culminated up to your chairmanship. So when you volunteered and were elected to be chair, it just made a lot of sense, especially since it was a time when our Citizens Advisory Committee was really struggling through the changes of the pandemic and lack of participation, and you were just exactly the kind of leadership that it needed to get through that. So thank you very much. I'm gonna come down there and give this to you and grab a picture, and then you were gonna blast it all over social media and put it in our newsletter. Fair warning.
He gets to speak next. Well, no, don't sit down just yet, Jose. Your report is next, so Chair's prerogative, I'll give you a few minutes to say a few words if you would like before you give your report.
I better not because I have 6 pages.
Oh, they start the timer.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you to all of you. I appreciate it. Without the staff, Joyce, Mary Michael, and the rest of the staff, Stacy, they made it very easy for me. Okay. Now let's get back to work. Okay. Good afternoon, directors. Feels good to be able to deliver to you the Citizens Advisory Committee report in person. Unfortunately, we are not quite out of it yet. We elected Shane Smith as chair of MCAG CEA, replacing me. I am proud of having nominated him. Right away, he showed his commitment and leadership by just writing a well-written letter to the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, supporting the Edgewater-Merced Expressway project. It is a sign of good leadership. I am glad he used the MCAG letterhead. His letter is part of CAC's functions. During our CAC meeting, July 2nd, the following were discussed. Some were discussions and others were action items. Because of time, I will make it brief. You will see most of them in today's packet anyway. Information items. From the information reportings, Chair Smith suggested that someone should look into CAC members who with too many unexcused absences. Consent calendar. Approve the air quality conformity analysis. Approve the TJPA for Merced County surplus property policy amendment. And the MCAG's action items. Approve the local transportation fund apportionment for fiscal year 2021-2022. Chair Smith recommended and approved to table staff's request to appoint a member to represent CAC in the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District for now. The issue is the distance and the expense. MCAG's discussion items. Matt Fell discussed the Transportation Planning and Measure V update. TJPA for Merced County discussion items. Christine Chavez reported on Transit Joint Power Authority for Merced County monthly updates. Purchasing 35 to 40 feet battery electric buses. Overall, the meeting went very well. 6 CAC members met in person. The rest were able to participate via Zoom. We will continue this hybrid format through September as allowed by the governor's executive order. Thank you for your lovely attention.
And thank you for your report. Okay, we'll move to item 7. These are informational items that have been provided, and the information was in your packet. However, if you have any questions, board members, we'll take those. No questions? All right, great job, staff. Okay, we'll move, well, actually, that was item A. Now we're at 7B, Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County. Oh, that was the monthly update as well. All of them. Sorry, it's my first time. All right, so now we move to item 8, consent calendar. All the consent calendar items listed below may be acted upon with one vote unless specifically removed for separate consideration by a board member, a staff member, or a member of the public. Does anybody wish to request an item be separated? All right, is there any discussion? Okay,
Second.
moved by McDaniel, seconded by Silvera. Would you please, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, now we get to the good stuff. Action items, 9A. The first one is approved changes of the 2022 One Voice program and execution of the one-year contract extension for Townsend Public Affairs. Mary Michael.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The item before you is looking for your approval for a couple of items related to next year's One Voice program. The first, to approve the final one-year contract extension with Townsend Public Affairs for federal lobbying support as it's related to the program. And the second is an update to program guidelines, which will also in turn lead to a slightly modified schedule for the 2022 program. As many of you are aware, we're always looking for a way to make this program more effective and efficient for both the member agencies and for the MCAG team. So we bring an item like this to the board every couple of years to kind of make those little tweaks. We're certainly happy that the program was a success this year. Thank you again to those who participated. The virtual environment always presents challenges. I think we were able to overcome those and had over 20 meetings with our federal partners and policymakers in DC. In the planning process, though, we're still struggling a little bit. So we're trying to address some of these and get those little bumps out by integrating some of those planning processes into the regular TRB format. Again, just as something to try a little new to see if we can smooth those things out. So the TRB meetings will function as a regular check-in for those types of things like rounding up delegate agreements, paying fees, policy identification and prioritization from the jurisdictions, collection of the fact sheets, and all those types of things that happen kind of in the December to February timeframe typically. And we talked to the TRB yesterday and they are in support of this. We've also had some feedback. We usually get feedback every year from folks. And this year there was some interest in seeing a more streamlined process with more limited topics and better use of our time as a full delegation. So by utilizing the TRB, we are hoping to make that easier and address that issue. So then the full delegation will be assembled after we get through some of those initial transactional pieces, so that when the full delegation does get together after that, they can be more focused, and the TRB talked about this yesterday, so they can be more focused on really getting to know each other, getting to learn the policies and priorities of the other jurisdictions, finding out where there's those common threads, or if there's a hot topic in DC, if there's some synergy locally about really bringing that to the federal level and really capitalizing on that time together, as well as the actual preparations for the trip itself and those logistics of our meetings. And of course, we'll come back to the full board in fall, like we usually do, to bring you that exact schedule and the goals for your final approval. Today's action will just provide us the direction in putting all that together for your consideration. So that's all I have today, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions? I do have one comment. I've been a part of MCAG for 5 years now, and in the previous 4 One Voice trips, people would come back and say, kind of really complain that some people hadn't stayed on topic, and that that even some people didn't show up to do their parts. And I'll tell you what, this year, I don't know, I guess kudos to Director Silvera and to yourself, but I didn't hear any complaints. Everybody was really excited about the process and what they got done, and so congratulations and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think it goes to Scott. Kept everybody on task and wouldn't allow anybody to say anything.
Thank you for those comments. It really was a testament to the group that we had this year. I think that because there was so many new people, they didn't have any preconceived notions, and we had meetings that were scheduled literally where if you were there, you had a half an hour or 45 minutes to get to the next meeting. Literally, a meeting ended at 10:30, and we were in the next one at 10:30. So it really was a testament to the group that we had, and staff obviously kept everybody online. But and just again, and I shared this with some of the folks. I know I reached out to Mayor Nagy and expressed some appreciation for the folks there in Gustine. Even though folks we weren't talking about a topic that was directly related to them, we had an awesome show of support, because all of our meetings, with the exception, we knew that there was some scheduling conflicts with a few people that they couldn't be at a meeting or two. The whole group was there representing, and I think that played really well on Zoom to see when those folks were looking at us, they were looking at a screen full of elected officials. So really, I think the part that I did was just kind of keep the wheels on the train and making sure that we were, wrapping up a meeting when we needed to, trying to extend a meeting, because inevitably in these meetings, the ones that you want an hour with, you only get 30 minutes with, and the ones that you only need 30 minutes with, you get an hour with them. And so making sure that we were want to be very respectful of everybody's time. So again, staff did a great job, and all of the other folks that were a part of it. And again, it goes back to those new ones, not really having any preconceived notions, and quite honestly being up front with them, like, look, if I do kind of cut you off on something, it's not being disrespectful, it's just we're trying to keep to this timeline. So it's kudos to everybody. Thank you.
Supervisor McDaniel.
Yeah, and if I could add to it, I think a lot of it was, and Scott did touch on it at the beginning, is it wasn't us all trying to catch an Uber to get to the next place and happen to go through security and everything else. And I think at the end of the day, there were no bars open at that time. So we didn't lose some of our speakers to go into other places who had different focuses than what we had. I think the whole group as a whole, we all stayed on and we stayed focused, and staff, great talking points. We all stuck to our script, and we got everything, our point across. And I like it. I do like the face-to-face contact in Washington, D.C. a lot better. Sure. But at the same time, this group, there was no stragglers, nobody off doing something else on their own, that we stayed focused and got our job done.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good job on that.
And
Did-
with that,
did you,
go ahead. If you have another comment, I was just going to make a motion, Chair.
well, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
This item did have quite a bit of discussion at the TRB yesterday, and the two that I wanted to point out was there was a lot of support about on the idea of having jurisdictions limit the number of topics to 3 and to have those prioritized at your council or your at the board level, so that there's real focus on what we're talking about. Also an emphasis on identifying the federal nexus before it ever even comes to being a submitted project. So identifying why is this a federal conversation and who is it with? And we can help with that as well in the process. And then the other comment was a little less formal, but there was some discussion around considering the possibility of encouraging repeat participants where possible, so that that camaraderie and that the benefits that were built from this year really kind of translate over. And I know jurisdictions have different approaches to identifying the delegates, and a lot of councils and the board may rotate people, and that's fine. I just wanted to share that note that I think that several of the TRB members mentioned yesterday.
Okay, thank you. Well, just before you make your motion, did you want to talk about Townsend?
Unless anyone has any questions, staff is continuing to
okay.
be pleased by their work. Nothing but positive feedback from the delegates. So unless there's concerns from the board, we're happy to execute that final option.
But I have not shared the news, if you haven't heard, that Laura has left Townsend. She left right after our trip was finished, and Ben Golding, who was in Congressman Costa's office, is now our new lobbyist. And we have been working with him and Richard. We hated to see Laura go. It was a personal family decision, but we were really excited to hear Ben come over, because he was the one that's been working in the congressman's office on our earmark request for yards and everything else. So smooth transition, and we have no doubt he'll do an excellent job next year.
Perfect. That's great news, Stacy. So, Chair, motion to approve the changes to the 2022 One Voice program and execution of a one-year contract extension with Townsend Public Affairs.
Okay, that was moved by Silvera and seconded by Pedroza. Any public comment? It's a cute question in today's crowd, but we're glad you're all here. Any further comment from the board? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right, we'll move to item B, accept the governing board meeting schedule adjustments for quarterly discussion on housing and homeless. Stacy?
I will keep this brief, but this is the action follow-up from last month's conversation that was spearheaded by Director Pedrozo about providing a forum at this board level to have a regional discussion on homelessness and housing. I took a stab, I took into consideration while trying to formulate a quarterly schedule of when the board could meet at 2:30. I took into account our normal workloads and when those are heaviest, to try not to make a really long meeting, and I did my best to avoid that. I don't have a crystal ball, but so with that said, the schedule proposes a 2:30 start time in September, December, March, and June. That avoids those big budget-heavy months and then keeps it at a quarterly basis from then on. I do have to make one note, and this is something I'll have to work on after this meeting. Yesterday at the TRB, I did learn that the League of Cities golf tournament is on the 16th of September, which conflicts with the board meeting in general, and then their conference is the week after that. So I'm going to have to do a head count for quorum to see if we need to move that date. But for now, we are proposing that whenever the September meeting would be, that September meeting would be the first 2:30 start time.
Okay. All right, well, I'll open it up for discussion. Supervisor Pedroza, you'd kind of asked this to be put on the agenda, so if you'd like to talk first,
Yeah, thank you. And again, I brought it up just because I know that we're all dealing with some of the same issues in regards to homelessness, and we don't get an opportunity as a region to really talk about some of these issues. And having this forum to kind of discuss what's going on, where we're at, how we could clean some of this stuff up and work together, I think is important. I know that our CEO for the county has said that he will make sure that we have the information that we need from our homeless czar, if you will, to go over the issues that they're facing and provide updated information as we move forward. So I think it's something that's important. Again, I think that it's an opportunity for us to have these conversations, because this is, the time that we can get together and talk about these. And I think doing it quarterly is important.
okay. Anybody else?
Just real quick, look, if you go look at the back, are you here? Back of this, it says MCAG is a council of governments with responsibility to manage and implement regional transportation, transit, and solid waste disposal services while providing a public forum for cross-jurisdictional issues. So seems to fit within that to me. And at the COC level right now, we're updating our 10-year plan and the regional plan as well. So we're going through that. We had our first kind of workshop Monday. We're going to have successive workshops this Monday, the 19th and the 26th as well. So timing will be pretty good too for September, I think, to be able to, and Lloyd was there too, obviously. So, I mean, to kind of sync that up would be pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I'll comment that, you know, homelessness is countywide. Every jurisdiction has some issues with homelessness. You know, some maybe more than others. Obviously, where services are provided, the numbers get larger. But you know, we all have to have skin in the game, and we all have to understand and be willing to really to do our part, right? You know, over the last few years, the county has really changed its involvement in this, and then obviously the state has put more money, and the federal government have put more money into homelessness and prevention and dealing with. And so, I guess, you know, my hope is that Assemblyman Gray calls together a regional planning meeting as well, and you know, which was kind of the start of really what Josh is talking about. However, you know, there's really no accountability for people showing up, and I think that you know, every city in Merced County has homelessness, and so everybody should be involved. And I kind of agree. At first, I didn't really think bringing homelessness here was probably the best idea, but as I processed it and listened to some discussion, you know, it just makes sense that we at least need to be updated, and then, you know, hopefully through that, you know, each city will find someone, whether it's staff, well, it really needs to be an elected, you know, that would kind of be involved at the county level. And so, anyways, I just think that benefits all of us. So. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? No?
If there's no other comments, then I'll move to approve accepting the governing board meeting schedule adjustments for quarterly discussion on housing and homelessness.
Second. That was moved by Pedroso and seconded by Nagy. All right, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we'll move to item 9C, which is a proposal to expand Measure V free fare program for fixed route services for seniors, veterans, and ADA eligible passengers to include all TJPA bus transit service types. Ms. Guzman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a long staff report for a fairly simple issue. To try to summarize it as succinctly as possible, this board took action as soon as the measure program began. One of the first actions was to allocate an annual amount to be used to provide free fares on our fixed route system for veteran seniors and ADA eligible passengers. At that time, the decision was to limit it to just the fixed route service, which is our point-to-point service that you pick up a schedule and you can say this is where a bus is going to be at any given time. The proposal then, and I went back to reread that staff report, was based on just the uncertainty of not knowing how much revenue would actually be coming in for the measure, what the ridership would be like. And at that time, our dial-a-ride and paratransit is always, but our dial-a-ride services were very expensive, and there was just a concern of if we could expand that program. Now that we have several years of ridership data and the program is very popular, and the board over the years has supported the program by increasing the allocation that is available for those subsidies, now is the time, I believe, and I feel strongly about this issue, that we really need to expand the program to include that benefit on all of the transit service types for the same population. So still veterans, still the ADA eligible, and still seniors. We're not talking all riders, but now it means that any TJPA bus that they get on would be a free service to them. So that would require a $95,000 adjustment to the cap of that transit dedicated revenue. And that is taking into account basically all paratransit fares, because if you're on paratransit, you are ADA eligible and you are not able to use our fixed route, even though our fixed route does accommodate it does accommodate wheelchairs, and you know, you can be ADA eligible and still ride fixed route, but there are people who are ADA eligible and cannot ride fixed route and are dependent on paratransit, and this program would provide that benefit to them. And the last thing, just to point, this program does run, it's a cap set every year based on ridership. So if the actual ridership is much less than what the subsidy cap is, at the end of the year, that unspent money just goes back to the general transit fund and can be programmed to something else at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Director McDaniel?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just put it out there. I am in full support of this. This was one of the catalysts that actually made me comfortable with supporting Measure V, sitting on that committee. I lobbied very hard in that committee to make sure that we had these services available, and to expand it does nothing but make it easier to accept Measure V, because whenever we put it out there, Measure V, a lot of the folks were like, but if we could point to a specific thing that would really help the folks who are struggling the most to get from point A to point B, this was it. So I strongly support this, and if there's, and I'll make the motion when there are no other comments to move forward with this. So thank you, Stacy, for bringing this forward.
Any other comments? Is there a second? Second. Okay, that was moved by McDaniel, seconded by Pedroso. I'll bring it back. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the dais. Director Silvera.
Just one quick question on the pilot program that we're doing out on the west side. Would this apply to that as well?
Yes, it would apply to our paratransit, microtransit, any dial-a-ride, any fixed route, any service we provide now or in the future. Those populations would ride for free.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we'll move to item 10, discussion items. First, we have A, which is State Route 99 campaign. Finish what we started. Stacy?
I'm earning my paycheck this board meeting. I got lots of items. This item is something that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. It's an effort that staff and Director McDaniel, Director Pedroso, although you might be involved in the future here, that we have been working on with the Regional Policy Council in the Valley. And the big picture is, as the state's emphasis and focus has been shifting, and understandably so in many cases, towards greenhouse gas reduction in vehicle miles traveled, investing in alternative mode transportation options. The implications that are, I think, being identified is a growing concern that it may be limiting, and in many ways we see it limiting opportunities to fund traditional roadway widening projects like what we have remaining on the two segments of Highway 99. And so there are three segments in the valley that 99, what was set forth in the 99 business plan has not been completed, and that's in Madera, Merced, and Tulare counties. So my colleagues in those two counties, we have been talking about, well, how do we partner with the state? How do we identify and preserve opportunities in the future to make sure that we're able to complete what was started on the Highway 99 corridor in widening it all from 4 to 6 lanes? So we have two segments in Merced County. Those projects are not as far along as the others in Madera and Tulare County. And my position is I'm recommending it, although this is a discussion, and Director McDaniel is fully aware and has been engaged in these meetings, is that we support our partners in Tulare and in Madera in getting their segments completed, while also working with our partners at District 10 and headquarters at Caltrans and other agencies at the state to identify how do we move forward in achieving our shared goals of seeing those widening projects be completed for the goods movement and all of the safety benefits that we have on the Highway 99 corridor, but also doing it in partnership to help the state and the region achieve its goals around VMT reduction and GHG reduction and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of a different narrative. It's a shift that's happening, and the concern that initiated this was, while we're all committed to reducing VMTs and investing in alt modes, we can't lose sight of the fact that the 99 is still a critical economic development corridor, a critical goods movement corridor. It'll be critical here in Merced County on access to our rail infrastructure that's being put in downtown Merced. And so there really needs to be a dialogue now about how do we preserve those opportunities and the partnership with the state to make sure those things happen. This really is the long game. These are big projects and big price tags. It'll take creativity and innovation, but this item was just a mark to say, you're gonna be hearing a lot about this in the Valley over the next couple of months. There's a summit that's being planned. It will be in our work plan for several years to come, and this was just my way to say, if anyone else wants to be involved, but the board, you'll hear more about this from Director McDaniel and I moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Director Silvera?
Thank you. Stacy, in the staff report or on the agenda, it says finish what we started, and one of the most important things is to really not lose sight of the investment that's already been made. And then, they've spent, Caltrans has spent, we've all spent billions at this point of taxpayer dollars, and then to just walk away from that investment would just be tragic. And I know our partners over at District 10, I think they all agree with us. It's just getting the rest of the state to pay attention. It's hugely important, and it's really, you can tell what they did. They picked the low-hanging fruit. The most expensive pieces left to do are those sections that are left, and it's just unacceptable for the state to walk away from that. And that's where I think this campaign is coming from. I know that squeaky wheel does get the grease once in a while, because if you guys remember, not too long ago, there was the section, I believe, in Madera, or was it Tulare, that they were gonna pull funding, and as a valley, we united, sent letters of support, everybody got on board, and that funding was restored to those programs. So it's hugely important that we just need to get our fair share of dollars back here, and it would be a tragedy if the state walked away from the investment that we've all made into this.
The one other point that I think is worth noting, if I take off my supervisor cap and put my air district cap on, is when traffic slows down, right, there's more emissions. And so the goal of the state really in going, in their direction of going to, alternate modes of transportation is to reduce pollution, right? And so, but we can't lose sight that, the straightest distance between 2 points, right, is a straight line. And if traffic's backed up, people are gonna get off and they're gonna go down surface streets, and it's actually gonna have more vehicle miles. And then those that stay on 99 are gonna emit more pollution. So I think, the combination of all these things really bodes well for our logic and getting the state to complete the projects.
Mr. Chair, if I thank you, Director Silvera, for your comments, and it did trigger that I do want to point out that we just, I think as of yesterday, hi Marlon, it was yesterday, I can't remember, earlier this week, we had an excellent conversation with Marlon Regisford and Dennis Agar with District 10. A week or two ago, I was in Sacramento with my colleagues and met with our partners at Caltrans headquarters. And I just want to reiterate that I have not heard anyone say that widening is not going to happen. It's about what does it look like now with the mitigation measures of trying to also, comply with the new state regulations and the new state laws and the goals and whatnot. So I definitely don't get this sense of they're going to completely walk away. It's just a different discussion of how are we going to get there. It's going to look different than the way it is, but the reality and the concern was that the way that some of the funding programs are being rolled out, that it will be less opportunity for traditional widening projects like what we've seen in the past. So just want to put the plug, because District 10, and even in our meetings in Sacramento, it was refreshing to hear that it's not going to be impossible. It's just going to be different. And I think we can do different.
All right, thank you for that report. So will, any other comments or concerns? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item 10B, proposed governing board retreat. You're on again. Why'd you turn that off?
I know, and this is, I'm sure, the one that brings the most anticipation and excitement from the board. I am proposing a governing board retreat. It was a line item that was in the board-approved budget, so the funds have been set aside. We realized some cost savings with our One Voice program being virtual over the last 2 program cycles, or with our Valley Voice programs as well. And the idea is that I've been with the agency 7 years as of next month, and we have not had a traditional board retreat in that time. And in that time, nearly our entire board, actually our entire board, almost, has turned over, and so has the staff. We have a handful of people who've been here, but for the most part, we've just had a lot of turnover. We have these new state goals that we're having to try to meet with on the transportation side. We have some transit challenges, but the idea really is to just get away for an overnight, and have one full day of facilitated retreat where we can just identify some goals that can give some direction for the agencies that we implement. And really, I think, which is also an important component, is that we have a JPA that's going to need to be renewed by 2 years from this month. And this could be the excellent opportunity to really start to set a framework about that process and what it's going to look like and what it would need to include, and so on and so forth. I originally was proposing an option on a weekend and also on a weekday in October. Turns out, and I should know this because my wedding was only 2 years ago, October is wedding season, and weekends are very hard to find for venues that can accommodate both meeting space and hotel space.
I thought you were going to tell us somebody here was engaged.
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think so. But at this point, I'm just looking for basically a big thumbs up, a big thumbs down, or kind of somewhere in between. That is this something that we can work towards? And the concept that I'm proposing is it would be the week of October 11th, and somewhere in that time frame, which we can hone in, would be come up the night before at the end of the workday, reception, full day of work, dinner, non-working dinner, just dinner, and then if you want to stay for breakfast, or if not, next morning or that night. But just one full day. And the agency, of course, covers meals and hotels and travel and all of that stuff. And I think those are the main points I should mention. So, I did identify, and we have talked to the Pines at Bass Lake, because it is about an hour and a half away. And the idea of going away is to just have full attention and commitment for that day to really get in and work. But of course, we are open to other options. We've been looking at the Mission de Oro, if it needs to just be a day. But today's item is checking the water on the temp of whether or not a weekday retreat in October, the week of the 11th, would work, if there's interest, or do I, go think about doing something else. But I think one way or another, we have to have a forum to have this conversation. It's just going to be whether it's going to be in a traditional retreat format or a daytime retreat here in town.
Yes, sir, Director Faria.
I would not like to go on and retreat for just that wedding location. There's also the Echo Center. I don't know if they have a chapel, so they probably do have those, but it really is required breakfast with their conference there.
Yeah, I think in talking with Stacy, I think we'd have trouble in a couple of hours because you kind of have you need to have an element of team building and getting to know each other at a non-meeting scenario, I think, and with a lot of new people, I think that time's valuable. And then, really, if we're gonna tackle some serious issues, it's probably gonna take us more than a few hours to get through it. But I get the gist of trying to keep it more simple.
Fresno has Wonder Valley, and they have team building events as well as conference rooms. So, just saying, it's close to Good Eaton, and I think it's right there by River Park, kind of that way. So,
It's gated community, by the way.
In receivership,
Oh, it is.
we have control.
Well, we have looked at LCAP if we do a one-day, that they have a facility that we could, come together there. So we're open. It's really just, we don't want to go through planning something that is just not going to work. So I definitely hear just already with the weekend, I know there are 3 already that prefer a weekend, so that just might mean it's not in October. We can do, anytime. If a weekend is the key factor, then we'll start looking at venues that serve a weekend and we'll go from there. Okay.
I think, possibly bringing in a icebreaker facilitator, if anybody knows of a really good one for the Friday evening, would be probably a good idea. And then if you find the ideal spot and price out of the area, I'm fine. I believe the Mission de Oro facility is in our county, and it's very nice, and so I wouldn't be opposed to booking that. I mean, it's in District 5, but I think
It is on the west side, the best side, that, yes. No, and thank you for bringing that up, Chair, because I was going to bring that up, and they've done a lot of work over the past few years, and I know that there's other groups that already use it. It's maybe a little bit easier for folks to get to, but it's still off of the beaten path enough that you're not going to be able to run out and go to another meeting or something like that. So,
It's a nice place.
yeah, and then I'm okay. I'm very amenable to the idea of doing it. I think it's something that needs to be done. I think that, as far as what the dates are, for me, if I look at my calendar today, I got dates available. So the sooner that we can get a date and get it on calendar, the better it is, because I kind of just go with the philosophy of whoever first gets on the calendar, and you look at it today and it's open around that time period. But if we go much longer, we have a redistricting meeting that was, as of yesterday, was going to be on the 10th, I believe it was, but then that date wasn't available, so that got moved to the 23rd of October. So sooner that you can get the date out, and I think it's, we all got to kind of make the commitment, and typically if it's a personal commitment, I can work around those, but when it's a commitment with my job at the county, it's a little tougher to work around those. So that would be my suggestion, is kind of figure something out, and as soon as we can, get it on the calendar.
just from a personal, if we're going to go to a Saturday, I have 3 weddings to attend in October. So, yeah, and none of them are my kids, so it's all free to me. But anyways, so. Dang it. But anyways, so what about, and so the 23rd of October works for me. Is it? Okay. So what about, yeah, honey, we're going across county.
The 23rd is our redistricting day.
Very nice bars.
That's that's Saturday. Oh, yeah. So, what about, everybody stays away from November because of Thanksgiving, but, the first 2 Saturdays are the 6th. Okay. So, November 13th, if you want to look at your calendars, is that what's good?
As long as it's not September 27th.
Veterans parades around there. But the parades.
I think Justine is the only one that does
Veterans
that.
parade and that. Or is it, I'm not sure.
Well, I'll check that. I'll check Veterans Parades, because I think, I was looking at Gustine. Gustine always does a post
but Gustine does, the parade is on Veterans Day, right? Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
Okay, okay.
But, okay.
So I will work with the 13th of November, which would be the night of the 12th reception if you want to come in, if you want to stay at the mission, and then all day. We'll still get rooms for you. People can come. The 13th of November. Potentially optional, coming on the 12th, stay on the 13th. All right, I've got marching orders. I am good.
Okay. And then if we did it local, would you rather have the dinner on Friday night or Saturday night? I think that's another question that
Saturday night, everybody would be there. Some people are not coming Friday night.
well, I mean, even if you're in Merced and you're not gonna stay Friday night, you could come over and have dinner and come back, but Saturday, I just, a late dinner on Saturday night, right, then you gotta drive home, right? So, even if it's a 5 or 6 o'clock dinner, it's till 8 or 9, and anyway, just a thought. Any other thoughts on a Friday or the Saturday night dinner? Good.
Outline the pluses and minuses of both.
Okay.
The important thing is they have rooms ready to stagger to.
Doesn't, I mean, yeah, you have a late dinner Friday or and then everyone's take off after Saturday.
Or stay and refresh
Yeah, that's
everything.
So it would be either all day Saturday or it'd be Friday night and Saturday,
No,
going into Sunday.
I think we're doing Friday night for sure and all day Saturday,
Okay.
right? Friday night to get us in, get us comfortable, get us interacting with each other, and then go to work Saturday morning early. Not dairy early, but like, I don't know. Banker hour early. I didn't want to scare anybody. Okay, well, enough with that. April's over here. Hey, let's get done. All right. Okay?
She's like, where's that gavel?
All right, so was that it, Stacy?
That's it.
All right. So we'll move on to the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County. Item 11 are our action items. We'll go to A first. Christine?
Good afternoon, directors. Christine Chavez, Transit Manager. I have 2 items before you, but I'll go through the first, which is the authority to purchase 3 battery electric buses. So this is our second set of battery electric buses, and we are looking for authority to purchase 3 35 to 40-foot battery electric buses in an amount not to exceed $3,697,000. The funding plan is going to consist of our TIRCP grant, which is the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program, which is a highly competitive program that we were granted last year through Caltrans. It is also going to include some state of good repair funding, and we are bringing it before you this month so that we can apply for the hybrid voucher incentive program, which will authorize $450,000 per vehicle for these buses. And so that can offset the cost of this. I'm sorry, not 450, 150. Times 3 is 450, yeah. We took advantage of this the last round of buses, so we had 5 of them and we were able to take 150 each. And so the voucher program will open again in August, and we would like authority to purchase these so that we can take advantage of those and offset the local funds that would be used to purchase these buses. The buses would be Proterras. This is a different manufacturer than the first round of battery electric buses. This is a bit more of a battery manufacturing company. Both manufacturers are different than any of the buses that we operate. We operate currently Gilligs, Arbox, and Cutaways, which are just manufactured E450s, E450s. And so the Gilligs are not available for purchase through the California Department of General Services contract, so they've procured electric buses and we're able to purchase off of them through the laws that allow us to do so. And so Proterra, what we've noticed throughout the industry is that various transit agencies are buying a variety of transit buses, battery electric buses, for their demos and comparing them over the life of the vehicle. So these have a 12-year life, and what we're hearing is that there's degradation of the battery over the life of the vehicle, and so in years 8 through 12, there's a significant decline in the performance of the battery and the vehicle. And so allowing us to diversify the types of vehicles will allow us to do that as we move forward to a plan to zero emission, which we're evaluating through our short-range transit plan and more specific planning. So the action before you is to authorize the executive director to execute a contract with Proterra in amount not to exceed $3,697,000 to purchase three 35 to 40 foot low-floor battery electric buses, along with associated depot chargers, options, spare parts, training, and special tools. And this will also authorize, and the second action is to authorize the use of capital reserve funding in the amount of $241,688 in the event that HVIP funding is not available prior to the invoicing of the vehicles. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one. How many passenger buses are these?
They can range, so it depends on the length of the vehicle, but I believe
Well, it's 35 to 40, so.
Yeah, 35 to 44 passengers with 2 wheelchair positions. And so the wheelchair positions often offset the number of passenger seats.
Sure.
Because they fold up.
And what are what's the expected number of people that we expect to ride these buses? Like the maximum on a daily use?
I don't have that number offhand, but these vehicles will be designated to the Planada route. This is an unmet transit need that we've yet been able to fulfill. There's a need to increase the services to Planada and North Merced. And so these buses will be used to service those 2 routes. So as far as the ridership, I don't have an exact number for a daily basis, but the idea is to modify those routes to increase ridership and put them on these buses.
Well, one thing I've noticed over the years is that, our buses run pretty empty. And it just seems silly to buy big buses when we're only running 5 or 10 people on them. So I don't know if there's less passenger buses available or not, but anyways, just going forward, just keep that in mind.
Christine, could you just speak to is the technology for the shorter buses up to par on the electric vehicle front? Meaning, do we have the opportunity to buy the smaller passenger vehicles in the electric vehicle model? That you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, is that technology there, or do we need the bigger buses for the battery life to get us to be able to actually?
Yeah, so I
operate
think
them?
you're referencing a cutaway versus a full-size
Yes.
transit vehicle. The cutaways do not have a range that I think it goes beyond 70 miles in a day, where these are closer to 170. And so the grant was specifically written for a 35 to 40 foot bus, and I wanted to have the 35 because I've specifically heard you mention that you don't want too large of a bus for the services that we're providing. The advantage with the larger buses specific to battery electric is that you can fit more battery packs on a 40-foot bus versus a 35. Yeah, and so one of the challenges that we will have in Merced County as we implement battery electric buses is the range. We're traveling across the entire county, and it's a huge huge mileage on a daily basis. I think we're upwards of like 280 for one of our longest routes in a day. And so the battery life at a small 35-foot or cutaway would not make that in today's technology. The goal is to have that make that eventually. So as far as the grant's written, it's written for a 35 to 40 foot, and so that's all we can purchase with this funding. But the battery electric buses for cutaways are not yet ready for the type of demand that we need, and so we're proposing these on some of the more inner city, smaller routes. But we are thinking 2 35 foots and 1 40 foot. But the 40-foot battery is significantly more powerful than the 35s. This is their most modern technology, but I think last time I was before you, they didn't even have this bus. And so it just continues to advance on a, seems like monthly basis.
Thank you.
Are you replacing 3 buses with these buses, or like retiring the gas ones or diesel ones or whatever they are with these battery ones, or are you just adding these to?
That's a great question. So these 3 will replace one vehicle, and then 2 of them will be for expansion.
So what do you do with the ones that you're retiring?
They are currently available for surplus disposal, and I've given the TRB the deadline of Friday, which is tomorrow, to claim anything. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know. But we have a full surplus policy, which I think was on the agenda today for an update to the policy. So if they're functional, we offer them up to the member agencies, and we give them a certain timeline. And then if they're not received by any of the agencies, then we can allocate them to, or we can offer them to nonprofits, we can offer them for sale and disposal.
I know in the past I've already suggested this, but there is a way to convert those into homeless shelters. So I know. I already talked about it, and that didn't fly. But anyway, yeah.
Easier to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
I know.
I would
They
just
have a whole program.
Job.
They have a whole program in Hawaii for it. So I suggest you look at that on YouTube. But anyway, your homeless issue right there, you can give them a bus. Let them.
First come, first served.
And all of the buses we have now are non-operable, so they would be completely stationary if anyone was interested for that purpose.
And police departments seem interested in practicing on them.
What does, sir, what's the pleasure of the board?
Comments?
Yes.
Yeah, Christine, regarding the buses, even though they're, electric and the big old batteries on the bottom, they haven't come out with solar panels on top of the buses, and being that they're long, maybe during the day they can be recharging. I know they will maybe they don't produce enough charging to produce, but at least maybe they can add another 50 whatever miles on.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is, a massive amount of money going into battery technology. What the transit industry is focusing on is battery storage, and so having electric panels at the actual home base and having a storage unit so that the electricity that's produced from the panel is stored into this unit. Buses have not been made with solar panels on them, but they do have overhead charging racks. And so you can have like a downtown transit center, and you'll have the overhead chargers that'll come in and charge them as they're waiting for passengers, and it'll just juice up, an extra 3%, which will get them an extra loop, and then over the course of a day, it maybe amounts to 30%. And so there is not solar available on any buses that I'm aware of. Could be happening on other end of the ocean, but I'm not aware of anything that's available. But battery storage is something that is available at a high price.
All right, thank you.
And since you brought that up, it is important to note that these buses are compatible with the chargers for the vehicles that we're already purchasing. And so the big difference is the AC to DC conversion. It happens at the actual post in the fueling station versus actually happening on the bus like it's happening on BYD buses, which are a whole different type. And so we want to stay away from something that's different so that they're all interchangeable and all can just be fueled at the same location.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other comments or questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 11A.
Second.
Okay, so that was moved by Espinoza and seconded by Director Faria. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, move to item 11B, project submittal for the State of Good Repair Program.
So item 11B, this is an annual allocation that we receive. I believe this is our third or fourth year of receiving the allocation. The funds are requesting to be allocated towards the administration office, which we discussed a couple months ago. So a portion of that would go to the engineering costs, and another portion would go to the actual construction, and you can see the breakdown of that on page 126. And then the remaining amount would go towards purchasing replacement vehicles, and it's left vague because we have some money in our capital plan. We've offset some of our future capital expenses with our capital reserve fund, and so we would like to allocate this towards vehicle replacement. And so in the case that we don't get HVIP, we would like to use this funding towards filling that gap. And if we do receive HVIP, then we would like to use this funding to purchase the future set of vehicles that we have in our capital plan.
Thank you. Any questions? Motion?
Second.
Moved by Silvera, seconded by Pedroza. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring back to the dais. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. We will move on to the Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority. Item 13 are our action items. First is item A, authorize contract for targeted grazing. Kyle?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Director. So before you is a 3-year contract for grazing services at Highway 59 landfill. There will be 3 one-year options included that. The annual cost for the first 3 years would be $52,433, and the optional years would be at $56,500. The total contract would not exceed $326,800. So historically, staff has been pulled off the landfill to do this type of maintenance. They're mowing, they're weed whacking up and down the hills of our closed landfills, 1 through 5, as you enter the landfill at Highway 59. So what this would do is we'd bring in either sheep or goats to manage the vegetation there at the landfill. This would save time, allow the folks to be back on the landfill doing the work that they need to be doing, rather than doing this type of activities. So last April, we released an RFP for grazing services for cells 1 through 5. We had 3 vendors submit proposals. Staff evaluated the proposals and interviewed the top 2 vendors. Following the interviews, the evaluators found no reason to re-rank or adjust the previous scoring. So we are asking you to authorize the executive director to enter into a contract for grazing services for 3 years with 3 one-year options in an amount not to exceed $326,800. Any questions? Here to answer those for you.
Directors, any questions? Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Cairo. Yeah, I was actually I dumped a load over there yesterday, and I got to see the sheep and the nice work on mowed on the side of the entrance door. So it's looking good. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
What's your pleasure? Moved by Silvera, seconded by Director Espinoza. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, bring it back to the dais. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. You know, sheep are ruminants too. Hey, that wasn't good.
It will
Strike
help on
that
our
from the
airborne-
record.
airborne when we do our inspections.
Okay, we'll move to item B. Approve purchase of a mobile loading dock system in the amount of $161,000. Kyle?
Yes, so this is a request to purchase some 4-trailer docking system in not to exceed $161,186. These trailers will be used for the loading of recycled material such as mattresses, carpeting, e-waste, and this equipment will allow us to maintain a cleaner, more efficient collection area for both our customers and our staff. So if you've been out to landfills, mattresses, e-waste, carpet get dumped into our collection area, which is on the ground. We do have a cover for it, but most of that material sits on the ground and exposed to the weather. Mattresses get piled up and stacked and laid upon each other, and kind of looks bad, but it also can be unsafe if people are loading near those. So what this will do, allow our folks to immediately palletize and to move equipment from the drop-off location up a ramp into a warehouse built out of these trailers and onto the awaiting trailers to be taken away. So it keeps the area cleaner, safer, and quickly allows us to maintain load the equipment up. So we are requesting that you authorize the executive director to purchase a 4-trailer mobile loading dock system in the amount not to exceed $161,816.
So originally, when I read the item, I thought it was 4 trailers, but it's not. It's 1 trailer with
It is
4.
It is 4 trailers that are going to be bolted together to create a warehouse, and they will have trailer docking systems on the side of it that semis will be able to back up to, and there'll be a ramp leading up into the warehouse area, and they'll be able to take a forklift up into the area and load onto. So it makes a tiny warehouse docking system built out of semi-trailers.
So one of the walls of the semi-trailer will have the roll-up doors for offloading?
Yep.
And then the other wall will be open?
Well, it'll be the broad side of one of the
Right.
trailers will have 4 docking stations on it. And I think in your packet, there's a photo of it where the trailers can back up. And they're the same docking stations you would see in a warehouse.
Right,
They're
I saw
designed to accept the semi-trailers.
Okay, so you're confusing me.
Okay.
Okay, so is there one trailer with 4 docking stations, or is there 4 trailers with a total of 16 docking stations?
There is one trailer with 4 docking stations, but there'll be additional trailers with the walls taken out, bolted together consecutively. So they will lay this way together, open up into a large warehouse area.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
And there is another photo, I think, of that warehouse area in the packet as well.
How sturdy are these? What happens if a truck accidentally backs up into it?
They're extremely sturdy. We went down to Kern County to tour another activity they had going on, and we saw this, and they showed us the system that they had, and they're set up extremely well. They're bolted together with larger beams between to support them for the weight of the equipment, so they are extremely safe to use, but they can also be taken apart and moved to another location if we need to at a later time. And opposed to building a facility that would be over $1 million, this, as you see, is well under $200,000, so a huge savings for us.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
Okay, been moved by Espinoza, seconded by Kale. We'll put it out for public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Great.
Okay, and
Thank
now
you all.
we are to 13C, request for direction on preferred next steps for the landfill gas to energy project. Eric Zetz.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everybody on the board. It's good to see you all. It's been a while, and I know that this is the first meeting I'm here to see some of the new faces. Got a big item for you, so bear with me. Your packet has a lot of information in it, and many of this information that I'm going to speak verbally is good for the record, but also it's going to reinforce what we have in the packet for you. This item is an action item, so it is not a discussion or information. It is an action item. The governing board authorized staff to explore opportunities for utilizing landfill gas at its Highway 59 landfill site for potential cogeneration of heat and electricity. And this would be a project with the UC Merced campus. To date, the authority has completed a concept design, prepared a CEQA document. I came on in October of 2019 is when the executive director hired me. This is a document that was already completed prior to me coming on to this job. It is not finalized because it requires this body to adopt it, and so it's waiting for that opportunity, but the work has been done since August of 2019. So the CEQA document for the project had been completed, as well a signed memorandum of understanding, which is included in your packet. That has also been completed, outlining the intent of the project for both parties to proceed. The CEQA document is currently pending final review, as I just stated, was completed in August of 2019. The power purchase agreement, this is the item that we are right now having some back and forth conversation on. The power purchase agreement is something that both parties have been working on since 2015, 16, and then all the way to today. So we've had that document that we've been reviewing. A final pro forma, which you saw in the workshops, was also completed based on the concept design and was drafted for the project. The landfill gas to energy project, I'll remind you, it includes both the Highway 59, the UC Merced Central Plant, and a pipeline path between both locations. The pipeline route travels south from the Highway 59 landfill, heads east along Bellevue Road, then heads north on Lake Road onto the UC Merced campus. Phase one, we completed phase one before we brought you all the workshops that we had at the first part of the year. And I'm just going to remind you what the phase one encompasses. So the phase one of the landfill gas to energy project, it is nearing completion. By November, the contractor was required to provide us a scope of work, a cost, and something we could bring to you. And that was what was involved in the workshops. But just to reiterate, the phase one includes value engineering during the full design of the project. Full design of the project would not come until we have phase two approved by this body into construction. Phase one also includes the construction manager at risk to do a review of the final plans and specs, a development of construction budget, which this board saw that budget, and contract with the authority, bidding of all major equipment and materials for the project, the bidding of major subcontractors on the project, the review of materials and equipment submittals, construction management, municipality coordination, and potential construction, and ultimately the commissioning of the project. So I will submit to you the construction manager at risk. Their work is not done if this project moves into phase two. So just be mindful of that. This body approved a budget amount of $600,000 for this work. When I came on, the understanding has always been is that the authority, they needed to know if environmentally if this project could work. And so that $600,000 that this body approved was to make sure that if it didn't go through environmentally, we just wouldn't have the need to go forward any farther. And so $600,000 was authorized. To date, we have spent $582,937 towards this project. This amount does not include staff time nor legal time. So there are those expenses outside of this project. In March of 2020, this board authorized the executive director to enter into a contract with MCAG Power, Inc. You'll remember MCAG was the company that did a lot of work on the workshops and presented before you. And so MCAG was selected to do the value engineering, which was phase one of the landfill gas to energy project. In November of 2020, MCAG then submitted their packet and their cost estimates, which we then, beginning in January and March, or January through March, those were the workshop meetings that we had before this body. On March 18, 2021, staff was notified, or staff rather, I would just tell you, right after the board meeting, I sent all of the documents, the power purchase agreement that we had ultimately drafted and spent many, many hours, months, days, years on over to UC Merced, and it was at the close of this body meeting on that March 18th board meeting, and said, UC, you are on the clock. The ball is yours now to move on this project. Outstanding was the power purchase agreement with UC Merced, which we gave them that draft. They then needed to edit it, make any comments that they had to that draft. And mind you, we have been working with them, both with their prior staff and current staff up to that point, on getting comments and edits from them. So this wasn't a document that they hadn't seen. But the power purchase agreement needs to be approved. The power purchase agreement encompasses a termination fee schedule, which safeguards the interests of both parties. And also, because it's on the UC Merced campus, there is also an accompanying site license agreement that would accompany that power purchase agreement. All of those items were included and given to UC on March 18th. Immediately following the March 18th notice, UC Merced began to express concern over the execution of the power purchase agreement without having additional project development completed on the UC Merced campus. In essence, they wanted a greater design spec for the components that went onto the UC Merced campus, which we had presented to all of this body, a 5 to 10% design spec, a conceptual design on the whole leg of the project, never once having the full spec design of the project until phase 2 construction had been authorized. UC Merced also expressed concern over their need for more time. In the letters, they have said to us that they have a series of information that they need, design work that they need from us, and work to begin. And once that work is done, they would not be able to review the material this summer, and that they would need an additional 6 to 9 months from the date of receiving that material, when it was received post-summer of 2021. For the many years and the staff time devoted to this project, the recent requests made by UC Merced were unexpected. and not consistent with the project development path that we had both agreed to. Following these meetings, staff requested that UC Merced provide their request in writing. So we were having coffee, meet them from coffee, doing telephone calls, Zoom meetings. This has been going on for a very long time. We now converted and changed. Really, we recognize the need to bring this information to this body and let you all see the work that has been done and actually list the issues that we had to consider. On June 29th, 2021, historically, as I'm sitting in this audience right now, I'm recognizing that in your packet, it was almost exactly 6 years ago that this body said, let's move forward with this project. It's interesting that we would get a notice from the UC that is almost without one day, 6 years to the day, to say that we need additional information before we can move forward. So on June 29th, we received this, and I will tell you, I feel for the executive director. We began to really put a lot of stress in trying to get this item before you as quickly as we could. And so it is here today. And through the work of the executive director and staff, we've been able to get this to you. So hats off to the work that has been done. The UC Merced letters also, well, we talked about that. Sorry. Staff has expended all funds authorized by the board for phase one. As I told you, we had $600,000, so we've spent all the money that we have. And we've completed the project development tasks needed to request the board's authorization to construct the project. The only outstanding item is the power purchase agreement, otherwise known as PPA. So if you hear PPA today, it is the power purchase agreement that we're referring to. So we feel that we've met our obligation. Environmental is done. This body needs to approve that power purchase agreement and has the ultimate authority of that document going forward. These responsibilities that we're talking about are outlined in the MOU. You have a copy of the MOU in your packet and are required for both parties to move forward on this project. In light of the new requests made by UC Merced requesting for additional information, project development, and the significant delays that UC Merced is posing to the project, staff is now seeking direction from this board as to how to proceed. If the governing board is interested in continuing with the further discussions, I will tell you immediately we routed these notices to our contractor, our construction manager at risk, all of our team to say, heads up, this is what we have in front of us right now. And we immediately got positive comment, hey, we're ready to act. We want to jump on this, and we'll work up a cost, and we'll do this, we'll do that. I will tell you internally, I was recognizing just in the limited time that I had been here that there are items listed in the letter that I have already submitted to the UC, and so maybe it's a change of staff, maybe it didn't get carried over, but it wasn't received or read. I'm not sure. The environmental document is a good example of that. So staff is seeking directions from the board as to next steps. If the project is, if you want to go forward with the project, we're prepared then to prepare an agenda, do some work, find out the costs associated with this, with the work that UC Merced has done, and come back to this board as early as August for a direction or a decision to approve that. It will require a budget amendment and contract amendments. Right now, we have met the contract limitations to the construction manager at risk and to Tetra Tech with the work that we've done with them, our engineering consultant. Otherwise, the other option is that staff can cease progress on the landfill gas energy project and begin to explore additional biogas opportunities for discussion at a future meeting. I will tell you that since embarking this, we've had calls of other vendors and other people and opportunities that have said, we can do better, we can do something. Let us have an opportunity. And by better, I don't mean a more efficient or a better revenue. Just in their mind, they thought they can do something more for us. And so we have always said we don't have that opportunity to explore those right now because we're in an MOU with the UC. So we've held back on that. I believe that we would have those abilities if we were permitted to go forward on other options. Staff is therefore seeking board direction to place an action item that requires the board to either A, authorize additional funding needed to complete the request made by UC Merced in order to move forward with the landfill gas energy project, or B, explore alternative biogas project opportunities. This concludes my presentation.
Well, thank you for that, Eric. You got some people up to speed that weren't here in the beginning, and actually I wasn't here 6 years ago either, so thank you for that. I appreciate your diligence on this project. I know it was handed over to you when you took the position, but you know, you've stepped right in and moved it forward as best you could, and I appreciate that. Our director would like to make a few comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Or
Chair.
executive director, not director.
I've been called worse, it's okay. Thank you, Eric, great update. I know there's a lot here. I just wanted to not clarify, I just want to make sure to reiterate that the item before us today is not to make a decision on the project. The item is to seek direction of the board on what you would like the next steps to be. So it is if you want us to put the numbers together based on the requests that the UC is making on what that budget would look like and what that would look like, we'll prepare that item for future consideration. The alternative would be, or concurrently, I don't know, but the other option would be to kind of pause for a second and then let's instead spend our effort maybe looking a little further into some of these calls and some of these opportunities and what they would be. So I just wanted to clarify that this, any action today would not in any way terminate or approve the project. It would just give us the direction on where to expend staff time and resources moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Director Silvera.
I'm just itching in my chair over here. Thank you for calling on me first. I want to be a great partner, but it takes two people, takes two sides to be a great partner. This was always my concern with the UC, that they had the better end of the deal if there was such a thing. I think it's really just gamesmanship on their part now to request stuff after we've been going down this deal for 6 years when they had plenty of opportunity. And I get it, they have changeover in chancellors, things happen over there, but at the end of the day, what I want to remind everybody is this board voted and agreed to spend taxpayer dollars to help be a good partner. And I'm sorry, but I feel like they've kind of made the decision for me. They don't want to play ball with us anymore. So I know that we can't, the action today is to give staff direction for the next steps. My direction would be, and I know I'm only just one person, is I'm done dealing with the UC. It's time to explore other opportunities and see if we can salvage some of the taxpayer dollars that we've already put into this. I think that we have a valuable product, and I think that really, quite honestly, we need to look to the private sector, because you see where looking to the public sector got us. It got us 6 years, and we're no closer today. I shouldn't say that. We know a little bit more about our side, but we're no closer to getting a deal done with the UC. And if at some point the UC wants to come and play ball, the price of poker went up. That's the bottom line is they had an opportunity because, again, reminding everybody the way that I understood this, the UC was going to be able to take these credits that they get by using this renewable energy, which helps the whole UC system. Again, the valley we get kind of taken advantage of, but we're willing to go along with it. And I struggled with, I wanted this thing, it didn't need to make tons of money, but I needed to make sure that we were protecting our investment, that our taxpayers were going to get something in return for this big, they had all the upside and none of the downside. That's the way that I looked at this deal from the very beginning, but willing to do it if we thought that we really had something tangible there. But I'm at this point, I'm done. I think they've showed how they treated us. I'm done dealing with them. If there's a private sector out there that wants to come and play ball with us, let's have those discussions. I'm not even interested at this point discussing what it would cost and a budget to come up with this ridiculous list of demands that they've had, let's say, at least 4 years to have those questions answered, as we spent $600,000 working with people that are a lot smarter than no offense to anybody up here that know this stuff. We could have had them answer those questions for us. So I'm done with them. I think that they've showed that. I think it's time for us to move on because, again, we do have a valuable product out there, and let's get it to work. And the private sector will we'll get there a lot faster, because if there's money to be made, they're going to respond. The market will respond. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Director Silvera. Most of the liability is on MCAG, and there was no guarantees that we were going to make money for our constituents. So I agree. That I'm not saying let's not, have a contract with with the UC, but we should be able to look out and to see, look at the options. So, whatever is best for MCAG and our constituents, like I said, sometimes we're always taking advantage of, and if there's enough methane, whatever it is, for the energy, if we get the credits, that would be good, And also too, I think that we got to have escape clauses on any contract that for any reason, natural reason, we should be able to, if for not performance, if we're not, for some reason, something natural happens in the ground, earthquake, whatever, and everything shifts, pipes crack, and for some reason we can't perform right away, we should have some time to alleviate those issues to perform, and not, be liable for anything. So, just to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Kale?
Well, I said from the very beginning is we need to look at other options beside, along with the UC. Those guys at the UC should be smart enough to know that we know how to play poker. And if they're out there saying, oh, we need more cards, you do not. You've gotten everything. I'm sorry you had changeover. I'm sorry, but you people are molding our students, and you're the top lines in the area, and you think we're that dumb? I say we're done with the UC. I'm good. They didn't have any stake in it anyway. It was all our money.
Director McDaniel?
Yeah, thank you. So what's amazing about this, being on this board since the inception of this, Supervisor Espinoza and myself both, him as a mayor, this isn't surprising. This is exactly the caution that we threw up every time, because the UC was coming in way too strong, but yet there's that trust level that we just never did have during this whole process. And we kept encouraging, let's look at other options, look at other options. But so this doesn't surprise me at all. We saw it coming, we knew it was gonna happen, and it's just disappointing that the UC wants to play this game with us. So I don't even know where I am with the project at this point. It was the UC stringing us along the whole time that kept us confident in this project. And moving forward, I don't know. We got to really look at the numbers and see what the private sector is out there. Thanks.
Director Ferrera?
Thank you. I agree with everyone else too. We can look at it this way. Now we've done $600,000 of research. Now we have a product to sell, and let's go out and take advantage of that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Nagy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reading the MOU, as you all know, all of the onus was on us to put everything forward, but all the benefit was going to be there. So they're cutting themselves short by putting a stop to this. But if you read their responsibilities, their first responsibility was to cooperate with us, and to not do anything was going to slow our progress. And that's what they're doing. And part of this whole thing too is for to be stewards of our environment, to take gases out of the ground and do something with them that's a benefit to the people of our county and the state. And I think they're very short-sighted in doing this. And I agree with Director Faria that we have something we could sell here. And I think we should look at other venues of opportunities to move forward. We've got too much money into it to quit now. And it needs to be done. We need that. We need to have this to get rid of the gases. So I think we should just move on.
Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, I'll make some comments. I and Director Silvera, probably about, year and a half ago, realized that there wasn't profit in it for us. And we raised that concern, and, but really, with Director Nagy's comments, right, we're going to spend money to take care of this flaring anyways. It's burning it off into the environment, so let's work with this. And so I agree with everybody here. I'm going to suggest something, and then I want your input to if you think this is a fair way of going forward or not. You know, as much as the UC has given me anguish, you know, there's good people out there. And so my suggestion, and I don't know if it's possible or not, but I'll throw it out there, is that we go back to the UC and tell them that we as a board are done. We have $600,000. There's $18,000 left in our budget, and so we're willing to expend that to generate information for their items, and then put any additional cost above that on the UC. And if they want to pay it and they're interested in moving forward, we do that. And then, you know, and then parallel, I think we go out to look at other options and you know, do both rather than stop one and start the other. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it does to me. Yeah.
So it would be to still generate an estimate of what that dollar amount would be to get to where they're asking, but to shift anything over our allotted budget over and say, but this would be your responsibility.
Right. And I'm thinking all expenses going forward, right? Not just generating the specs for the plant at their site. Is that, is that doable, do you think, or not really?
Absolutely, absolutely. When I had first come on with the prior UC staff, we had let them know our limitations at the budget of $600,000. They were telling us at that time that they needed a 70% to 90% design spec on just the UC campus, and so we understood that. And what they needed to get it through their committees for approval before it goes up to the uppers. And we were verbalizing at that time, listen, we don't have budget authority to pay for that. We have an engineering service that we can provide that can drum up an estimate, but you'd have to pay for that. When Tetra Tech did that, they drummed up an estimate of 90% or more spec design for the UC campus, submitted it to them. The UC never moved on this. Shortly thereafter, that staff, for one reason or another, is no longer at the UC, and it was left there. Now, we have spoken with the Vice Chancellor. The Vice Chancellor has said that it is his understanding that the design, the full design, is the authority's responsibility. What we've tried to convey is that, well, that is on phase 2, is when that would come. And so at that time, it was a $200,000 or $300,000 estimate for that 90% spec by the engineering consultant. And so I absolutely believe that we can go back and ask for them to revisit that, to drum it up and look at it, and then to say this is what it would take, and this is where the limitation we have to spend to that.
Okay. And that would, you know, because I've met with the Chancellor and spoken to him a few other times, and I mean, he seems to be a pretty genuine guy, you know, but he's only been here a short period of time. And so I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And if he wants to put the deal together at their expense, then let's keep that moving forward. But yeah, okay. Director Silvera?
I could live with that approach, but again, with a timeline, because if you say, well, then, you know, but you guys have to pick up anything else, and then they're going to send you a letter that says, well, we got to run it through a committee, and then it has to go to the regents, and then, you know, they'll give us an answer in 6 months. I think it's like realistically, to me, it's like 30 days. Here's what the next option is. You got 30 days to respond. No response means you're out, or you can send us a no response, or you respond to us and you say that you're in, and then we know how to proceed forward. But giving them, after we've given them 6 years, giving them any more time than a month, I mean, maybe a month and a half, I just think we end up back in the situation where we've just wasted another month and a half of ultimately going in the direction. Before we start to go in the direction I think we're going to go in anyways, which is probably not with the UC.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, another comment?
Yes, Director.
You know, obviously, like I said, we don't have to, you know, end the conversation with them as well, but, you know, we should be able to go out. Obviously, there's interest, but we have to see, you know, how much we're going to get in, how much methane we would provide in funds, and also, too, how many credits are we going to be able to sell, and how much so. So if that's a lot more beneficial, then we can show those numbers to them to see if they, you know, we can work with them. If not, then we can go out in private. So thank you.
Thank you. And I would add to Director Espinosa's comment that we have had a couple proposals that have just verbalized to us the ability to create something on site and to construct it and then sell it to the grid anywhere. And we are hopeful that we'll have a very exciting proposal, very similar for Billy Wright, that we've been working on for a very long time since I've been here, but it's not ready yet. So yes, those technologies are out there. We can look at those, and we'd be happy to do that.
And I'd like to add, I agree with your suggestion of a time frame with a caveat that says, oh, by the way, we're looking at other options. And our board is given directions to look at other options. And if we can find other options that will make us more money, I'm sorry, we're going to take that.
Received, thank you.
Since I don't know if this is a question for you, Eric, or for Stacy, but does the MOU, the current MOU we have, does that preclude us from doing any of that stuff? I mean, I saw it a long time ago. I haven't reread it.
I will look at Eric, and both of us will be looking at Emily.
I misunderstood the question. What was the question?
Does our MOU, our current MOU with them, does that preclude us from, I mean, I think their letter saying they need 6 months told us that they don't want to be a part of it no more, but I'm not the lawyer here. That's for you to answer, I guess, Emily.
I haven't looked at it with the mind to that. I will, but I doubt it. I don't think we're precluded from exploring other options at the same time, especially given the circumstances we find ourselves in now and their actions with regard to the MOU. Because as Director Nagy said, cooperation was the first requirement of them. And we can talk about this more a little later, but I don't think they've met that obligation.
Good. And Eric, again, I just wanted to commend you on, I know that you walked into this thing and we got to a point, I mean, where we saw a lot of information when Tetra Tech and all those folks came in that really kind of got us down to what we really wanted to see was what's the number at the end. We can talk all the fluff we want, but at the end of the day, what's the number, and ultimately, I couldn't do anything that was going to lose us money. But we got there. So again, thank you for all the work. I'm sure you're probably just as disappointed in getting that letter as I think all of us up here are. So thank you for that. And Stacy, I know you guys worked a lot of hours on it, and it's just thinking that $600,000 that we almost spent, that doesn't even come close to. I mean, it doesn't even count our staff hours that went into that. That's just what we paid other people. Right. So the amount of staff time that went into this. So that's not lost on me. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the sake of summarizing all the comments to make sure that the direction that we're getting, because it's a hybrid of the two options that we have, what I'm hearing, and I'm going to suggest something to kind of fine tune it as well, is that I would recommend with this feedback that we would complete a letter or a written response that would go to the chancellor communicating that we have completed our part. That was the project development path that both sides had agreed to, that we have received the additional requests from the UC. We estimate that would total X dollars to complete. That because we have completed our part would be at the responsibility, we would do it at the responsibility of, financial responsibility of the UC. I would suggest we consider a meeting with the chancellor upon submitting this letter, so requesting a meeting to talk to him about it, and then also giving a 30 to 45 day period of which there's an expectation that a decision is made.
And
how many days?
30 to 45, I'm throwing out there. I heard 30, maybe 40, yeah. So I think considering how quickly things have not been happening, I would probably encourage 45. 45 is like 30.
Right.
And I guess if I may, I would just ask, do we also put in there that we are taking option B to seek out other opportunities?
Yes.
Right.
I have that too. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, would you, I guess if we're going to meet with the chancellor, would you like two directors to be picked today that would meet with you with them?
That would be helpful. I think
we're going to do this before next month's meeting.
Yes, that would be my recommendation, is that And in fact, we could do it one of two ways. I do think having two directors there would be excellent, along with Eric and I, and then Emily, we'd had the potential conversation of whether or not it would be useful to have both sides counsel there or not. Well, we're pinning that. The other would be the conversation around whether we submit the letter and then meet, or we take the letter, which is basically going to be a written version of the conversation that's going to be had, and that can be left with the chancellor. So those are the other two options. But I would like to get moving on this tomorrow to get the invitation out to the chancellor and try to get something scheduled so that we can get an answer back to the board by next month.
I think, well, I'd hope that as your chair, you would allow me to be one of those two people. My own vice chair, man. He wants me out. He's got plans. But does anybody else have an interest in wanting to be the?
I would definitely be honored to be there. I just maybe because I know, like, I think probably what we came up with is short of what I would have came up with. So I mean, if there's somebody else that thinks that they could explain it better, maybe more eloquent than I could, I would.
I was thinking good cop, bad cop.
Okay, I welcome the idea, but if not, I mean, I would be honored to do it. But if somebody else wants to do it, that'd be fine.
Yeah, hey, our line is going to be, Matt and I's line is going to be, don't make us call Scotty. That was Stacy's. Oh. Anyways, okay, let's get back on track. Anyhow, all right, enough direction?
Yes.
And I want to ask one last question. Does that fit? I mean, does it make sense to you, what we're talking about?
Absolutely does.
Okay.
The consultant had already asked, do you want us to re-up that, that cost estimate? So this is in line with that. Happy to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we came with a good solution.
Do we need a vote on that at all?
Is it an action item?
It is an action.
Well, it's under action item, but it is.
Seek direction.
Count. I would defer to Emily. I feel confident that I have the direction that we can note.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. There are no discussion items, so we will move to Executive Director's report.
I have one apology and two quick items. I'll go to the two quick items first. I did send out an email that we have a household hazardous waste event at Highway 59. Those flyers, sorry I sent them out late today, but they're both in English, Spanish, JPEG, and PDF. That's out at the Merced site. Let me know if you have any questions on that. The second is I just want to do a really quick calendar check because the board last month gave direction to schedule the subcommittee for the performance evaluation meeting, and I've had a heck of a time. So I would like to propose to, I think, the 4 directors that are here to meet before the literally the day of the August board meeting at 2 o'clock. So that would be Directors Hogue, Chair Pereira, Director McDaniel, and Director Silvera, and then I can follow up with Director Aguilar to August 19th. Also have, and we could, if it works enough, we can do a virtual tie-in. Because, I mean, that works well with a small group. So if it would make sense that would help you, we can have a virtual tie-in from wherever you would be. Okay. Because the board meeting will be at 3, and the board meeting is at the county. So, okay. Room 310. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That was a lot faster than the other option. My apology is to Marlon because, and to Mary, thank you to Mary Michael for catching this. We goofed and somehow Caltrans report fell off the agenda. And so I would like to reserve and give the rest of my time to Marlon for his Caltrans report.
Well, I was going to give him time during my director's
I was too.
Fight over you.
Yeah.
No, come right up right now, and we appreciate you being here, Marlon.
Well, thank you, Chair Pereira. I appreciate it. Thank you to the board as well. Appreciate the time. I will be brief because I know that there's more business to take care of, but I did want to provide a quick update on some Caltrans activities lately. First of all, I do want to mention, at least from the state, the Sacramento level, Governor Newsom had just announced a historic broadband budget bill. Some of you may have heard of it already. This is actually a trailer bill, Assembly Bill and Senate Bill 156, which is expanding the state's broadband fiber infrastructure and increasing internet connectivity for families and businesses. So what it really does is provide vital accountability and legislative oversight for broadband, and also create a broadband czar, and also a 9-member council for broadband within the California Department of Technology, so partner agency to Caltrans. And also the governor will be hiring a third party to build and maintain a middle mile network. This will consist of high capacity fiber lines that will carry large amounts of data at higher speeds over longer distances between local networks. And this is part of a $3.25 billion investment to target middle mile and build the broadband lines out, especially for rural communities. And there's $2 billion allocated for last mile infrastructure lines that will connect rural and urban consumer homes and businesses with local networks. So just wanted to point that out. That's one of the major initiatives that came out of Sacramento recently. As far as Caltrans headquarters, there was one big initiative that we are asking for support and participation, which is our Caltrans Innovative Concepts. We currently have a call out for projects, and we're seeking proposals for innovative concepts that align with some of our recent guidance, some being California Transportation Plan 2050, our recent approval of the Caltrans the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure. That's not a Caltrans plan, it's actually our state transportation agency, parent agency. And also innovative concepts that align with our recently approved and adopted Caltrans strategic plan. So if there's any innovative concepts that you may have or think about, we do have a form submittal that I can send off, but if you like any information on that, please contact me. The deadline for submittal of innovative concepts is July 23rd, so basically next week. So if you have any thoughts on that, please do feel free to contact me on that one. I do just briefly want to mention some project-related information. Right now, we do have a roadside safety improvements project on Route 140. And this is actually a very large project, 47 miles. We are extending culverts, removing head walls outside of the clear recovery zone, and also adding new guardrail at 12 different locations, from all the way west in Gustine and all the way east into Planada. So it's a very large project. We are going to design later this year, actually in September, right after Labor Day. So hopefully we'll be out to advertise and do construction in next year. So just FYI on that. And so, hopefully construction will be completed by early 2023. So let's see. The other thing I wanted to mention was our Route 99 Livingston median widening project. That is actually something that we are hoping to list later on this year in December. Right now we are doing design for that project, and hopefully we are going to complete it by July of 2024, so just FYI. And just one brief local traffic advisory update, and this is kind of happening right now. But we are having ramp closures on I-5 and Route 59, Route 99, Route 140, and Route 152 for maintenance and construction activities. We will have some bridge work going on as well on 165, and that is actually happening this week. So if you're out and about on 165, just be aware we're doing some work out there. Other than that's all I really had to provide for the board. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, we'll be happy to take it. And thanks again for the time.
Yes, John.
Last month, Director McDaniels talked about homeless situation here in Atwater, right on, as you're heading onto the northbound 99, they're right there. And have you guys evaluated that? Because we have offered assistance to help those homeless in that area, and they don't want any. They want to stay right there, and they're burrowing into the side of the freeway and everything, and they're actually have been doing questionable activities in and around that area. So you guys haven't looked into that apparently, or as far as we know.
Director Kale, yeah, I did mention this to our maintenance team previously. I will follow up on that with them and make sure that we're at least touching base with this location at Atwater 99, because we want to make sure that, especially with unquestionable activities, I think questionable activities, I think we need to go and take a deeper look. So.
Okay, and feel free to give me a call.
Thank you. Thank you.
And appreciate that.
Any other questions? Nope. Yeah, Director Espinoza.
Thank you. I always have a question for Marlon, right? And always a request, right? So thank you, Marlon, again for everything you've done in the past. And if you happen to find any funds, especially on infrastructure and bridge on Highway 59 at Mariposa Creek, I know that we're in a drought, but whenever we get a lot of rain or floods, like I said, it always has to be shut down for even a couple of weeks or more. So I want to make sure that Supervisor Silvera comes over here, makes it to the county. And also, one thing, one overpass that I'm concerned about, safety, pedestrian and safety, and we have a lot of homeless that go over Charles Avenue overpass. That's very narrow and unsafe. I think in the future, Caltrans needs to look at, fixing that as a safety issue.
Sorry, Director, which
The Childs Avenue overpass.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's very narrow and it's becoming very busy. And kids, I get a lot of calls from moms regarding their kids going to high school over to Golden Valley from the west to the east of the freeway. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely look into that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director Silvera.
Yeah, Marlon, thank you for being here. I just wanted to point out to you on Highway 33, between Cypress and Barcelos roads, there was some kind of work that was done. There's a canal there, there was some kind of near there's like a drip station or something. There was a pipe that was put under the road, and the road is actually sinking. There's actually a dip there, and I got a couple calls about it, and the other night I was actually traveling through there, probably doing about 60, and not expecting that. I mean, I was in my wife's Tahoe. It's quite the ride. I really think it's an immediate safety concern that someone gets out there and takes a look at that, because you hit that thing, it's almost like you catch a little bit of air. So I just wanted to put that. I did get a couple calls about it, so I wanted to put that on your radar. And then, again, I think that you guys, I know that Stacy's already reached out to you, but in Santa Anela on Highway 33 and Henry Miller, there is signs there right in front of the McDonald's and the Panda Express that says no stopping, but just kind of the way the landscape is, the signs sit pretty far off of the road, and they look like they're probably 10 years old or so because they're super faded. And what's happening is you have semis that are parking along on the northbound side there of Highway 33. And so if you're coming out at the intersection at Henry Miller Road to try to come out, you have to nose out into oncoming traffic to be able to see around those trucks. And so I've been out there a few times over the last couple of weeks, and when there's not a truck there, it's not an issue. But when trucks park there, even though it says no stopping, you really are. And I got a call from a constituent who, was saying prayers because he looked one way, and then here comes a semi, and he pulled out and, so I think that if that's just a signage issue, I really think the signs need to be moved closer to the sidewalk or to the road there so that people can see them, because they sit kind of back in McDonald's landscape area. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Director Soler, I would just want to mention, actually, I do want to just make sure I confirm the location of the pipe. Is that westbound, eastbound, or is it just both sides of the roadway?
I came in on a different road, and so I was heading out, and I was actually heading north on Highway 33.
Okay, it was on the north side. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if it stretches across to both sides. I don't have an answer for you. Dos Palos, yeah.
Yeah, it just goes halfway into the lane.
Okay.
Going towards.
Heading north. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director.
Going out of town.
Yeah.
I hit it several times.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Okay.
It's not fun.
And that's
Yes.
right
you, Marla.
north of Colony Canal.
Yes,
I was,
right by the canal.
yeah, I was talking to the city manager at the TRB yesterday after we spoke to make sure I had as much.
I actually had somebody drive by there today and send me a pin drop of it, so I
Oh,
knew.
there you go.
I gave when I talked to Stacy originally about it, I gave her like well, I know it's between Carmelia and no further than
This is
Denton.
the entire
but
like zip code of Dos Palos.
yeah, so I tried to narrow it
Just
down.
tell your guys drive 65, they'll find
Yep,
it.
yep.
Yeah.
I have one other request. Probably 6 months ago, I had asked for the shoulders to be redone on North Highway 59, from Merced out to LaGrange Road. And your crews came out and actually did them out to, probably the Edendale Canal. They didn't go any farther. And unfortunately now the whole, the spots that they fixed are bad again. And and then the spots they didn't fix are still bad. So if we could get them to go all the way. I've lived on that road for about 50 years and I've never seen them go all the way. But hopefully we can get them to go all the way to Snelling.
We'll definitely make that note. I'll bring that back to our maintenance team as well. Director Silvera, I did want to mention, we did ask our partner agency, CHP, to go do more patrols in Santa Nella in that location, Henry Miller. But the signage issue, I will bring that back to our operations team and see what they can do, move the signage out further into the street and see what we can do.
Okay? Oh, all right.
Sorry, one
Thank
last,
you, oh.
yeah, one last comment for Marlon, because we're running out of time on the innovative concepts. But if I can find the bandwidth and we can find the bandwidth, I would really love to talk about or submit something about innovative responses for public transit serving state and national lands, state and national parks, because it's a unique niche transit area, and they aren't traditionally funded as other transit systems are, and they definitely serve the state's goals on reducing VMTs and GHGs and all the other acronyms. So that's a thought floating in my head. I just now have to try to develop that before your 23rd deadline, so I'm going to.
Thank you, Director. And that is a wonderful suggestion. I think that will be well received. So I'll send you the form information if you like as well.
Thank you. Thanks for coming to our meeting.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on. Director's reports. We'll start on this side. Okay.
I just wanted to point out on the MOU that the person that signed it was Stacy Dabb. That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Nope.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment that tomorrow we will be having Congressman Costa and Senator Caballero. No, she's not coming? Oh. No. Yes, they're going to be there, right? And anyway, all the muckety mucks are supposed to be in Dos Palos tomorrow for a water viewing of the water plant, I guess. I'm not quite sure what they're going to be doing, and a luncheon, so I have to put my mayor hat on tomorrow too. So anyway, they're all going to be there, and anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for the little award here. That was nice. So
Director Faria?
I just want to thank the city of Atwater for hosting this meeting, and I make sure you guys fill up and have some dinner before you guys go home. I'm trying to help my neighbor. Thank you.
Okay. No? Okay. Any comment? Good. You're good? All right. Well, at this time, we're going to go into closed session, and so
Just to jump in, this closed session was placed on the agenda sort of just in case. I think we had a candid conversation about the subject of this closed session already during this meeting. So unless any of you feel that we should adjourn into closed session, I think we can adjourn. We cannot go into closed session.
all right.
It's rare, I know. Take the opportunity, guys.
And it's not Christmas. Okay, well then, we're not going to go into closed session. So do I need to do public comment before closed session? Nope. Well, I have good news and bad news. Bad news is we went past 5, but the good news is we're adjourned.